But I wanted to ask you a little startup question.
Okay.
And my startup question is, I want you to, I guess you can name and explain. So it's not really that much of a question, but I want you to name one thing that you really love about yourself, like your personality-wise or just how you are, all that type of good jazz, the self.
Yeah.
What you love about the self, and then emotionally, mentally, all that. And then what you love about the self physically. Just like something physically you love about yourself.
I like that. Okay. One thing I love about myself, kind of like the metaphysical aspect, is, I'm like, there's so many different things. I'm like, which one do I want to talk about?
That's good. That's a good problem.
Because I'm like, I really enjoy my humor. It makes me laugh a lot, and to the point where I kind of get confused when people don't get the joke. Because I'm just like, I was ruminating on that one for a while.
But that's good that you can make yourself laugh.
Yeah.
Some people are boring and can't even bear to spend time with themselves.
That's not me.
I know.
No, I really do enjoy time with myself and laughing with myself and making myself laugh. So I'll say that, but I guess it's more like also the charisma of how I'm able to insert jokes into a space where nobody was even making jokes.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that has to be something serious, something dark, but like we might just be talking about like breakfast, and then the way someone might have said like eggs and bacon, egg and cheese would stand out to me, and then I can like point that out, and that's really funny to me. And it's like it seems that only when I point the thing out are we both now laughing at it, because it's like, I hear what you saw, I hear what you heard, but previously if no one had said it, no one would have pointed it out. And so I really enjoy like my ability to do that, and it brings me joy. So that's the metaphysical.
I like it.
I like it.
Yeah, I'm just sitting here like, yeah.
And then
what's the physical?
What's the physical? What is the physical that I really like? My hands. I really like my hands. I like hands in general.
You've told me this before.
I really like my hands because they were the base for me of like how old I've gotten and how things are changing for me. I think we do a lot of things with our hands. As a photographer, I'm always using my hands. And when I was first understanding my own anxiety, it like used to manifest through like my hands shaking. And so my hands were like a really big marker of like what is going on with me, both in age, both in how I'm presenting myself, and both in how I need to move forward. So my dad also used to talk a lot about like you need to have like calluses on your hand, and that shows that you've been doing hard work. But on the same side, he would also talk about like, I never want you to have calluses on your hand. That's my job. And I was just like, there's so much emphasis goes into
Dad, pick a struggle.
So much emphasis goes into like what our hands are supposed to be doing or not doing, and I enjoy the observation of it, and I think honestly, because I talk about your hands a lot.
I know. I was just thinking that, and I was like, I'm not gonna bring that up. But if you bring that up, it's brought up. So
it's brought up now. Jaska has the most beautiful hands, and look at how Jaska's holding their hands right now. Anyway,
that means you all should be viewing this if you're just listening. Like, give us a peek.
So the way that Jaska, for those who are listening, the way that Jaska often carries their hands is in this very graceful, elegant way. Like the back of the hand when Jaska is sleeping is usually caressed on their cheek. And so to me, it kind of just like reads as royalty. Like imagine the hands are just like all the way flushed out, and it's just gently there, and Josh is just.
I feel like that's also indicative of having been a dancer for so long too, and having just like experimented with different shapes of the entire body. And of course, I had a very large emphasis on my hands, and I've always had. I didn't really think of it like that until recently in terms of I really like my hands, because I love my hands. I love my fingers. I love my nails. I don't really get my nails done at all because I just love my little nails, and I love how long my fingers are. That's been a thing. Like the people saying you should play piano because you have piano fingers.
I've never heard that.
Yeah, somebody said that to me when I was a little younger. They were like, "Oh, you have piano fingers. You can reach like your breadth of reach is wide because your fingers are longer." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." But yeah, I like the way they look. But
yeah, but it's also like the way you move with them. Which so I hadn't thought about the aspect of you being a dancer and how that impacts your hands. I think that makes a lot of sense.
yeah, we do a lot of articulation through every single part of every single crevice of the body. I like your hands too, though. I think, and I remember you telling me that before. But it's true. We use our hands so much that they show signs of aging before, and not like I think aging is great.
Yep.
Hello?
Right.
It's part of why I'm doing this podcast. But it literally is. And I just want to learn and grow. Keep learning and growing all the time, every day. But being able to just like look at the hands and notice the differences that it used to be something else. It used to be maybe less whatever it is that you're noticing, and now it's like this, what it is now.
Yeah.
I think those are cool types of observations to have.
So yeah, my hands, top tier.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like not a lot of people would say hands.
Yeah. You know what I was thinking about too? Like, people have probably seen the live action version of Doctor Strange, but I saw the animated version a long time before that, and that was my first interaction with realizing how important hands were for doctors, but specifically surgeons. Obviously, like I knew that, but I hadn't thought about like if a surgeon loses their hands, they can't even do their job anymore. For real. And so the movie had a different core to me when it started off with him getting into this car crash, and all the bones in both of his hands were fractured, and he lost his job, and he spent like years trying to figure out a different way to heal his hands so that they wouldn't even have like a slight tremble, which then led him to magic. I was like, that's such a like they spent a lot more time in the animated version on his hands than they did in the live action, and to me that was like a really integral part of what led him to using magic, because your hands are also used in that as well, but he's not touching anything. And so that was interesting to me. Yeah.
That is interesting. Now you make me want to go watch the animated one.
Oh, it's better than the live action.
And this is a movie and not a series?
It's a movie, yeah.
Oh, okay. Consider it watched. Add to my watch list. I'm loving this. I'm so excited for this conversation.
Me too.
What am I? I'm going to say this about a lot of conversations, but this one specifically because we have good conversations all the time, obviously. Yeah. I'm just like, I'm ready. The viewers need to get into this, hop into this. So, hello. Welcome to 23, 24, 25, a podcast about being slapped in the face by 2023, and also the wildly complicated transition that is turning 25. Oh my goodness, I'm your host, Joska, and I've invited my friends and closer than friends to the table to talk about all things life as baby adults. And today I'm joined by Dante, who is just near and dear to my heart. Love you always. And of course, it makes sense that I would ask you to come here and talk about love, because we have a beautiful love journey. And also, I want to talk a lot about self-love, because I've been very inspired and encouraged by you as we've been together for different self-love journeys. And like just watching you interact with other people, other loved ones, has been a very big thing. I'm just like, oh, that's... I can definitely specifically highlight that in my mind, where I've been like, like that's, I kind of want to examine where my relationships are, especially with family members. Like, I want to kind of examine where my relationships are now, because I'm inspired by seeing how you navigate love with family.
Yeah.
So,
that's beautiful.
I'm excited to get into this. You said that's beautiful?
That's beautiful, and I love you.
Oh,
yeah.
Love you too. All about love. Let's start with the MySpace Top 5 game. So, as you all know, we're doing MySpace Top 5, which was ahead of our time. But I got into MySpace. Anyway, so stop. Never mind. I'm like, now Now I'm projecting, but MySpace top 5 is where we're gonna bring in some of our favorite things, people, fictional characters that have influenced our growth. This is for our guest, my guest. So you're hiding it from me.
Yes,
I can't see your paper.
Not yet.
It's like I'm gonna cheat or something.
You're right.
Okay, so let me hear your top 5.
Okay.
What has influenced your growth over the years?
Okay, so for preface, I never had a MySpace growing up. I think that's important to note. So if this doesn't align with like how MySpace people did it, it's foreign to me.
No, it's totally fine. It's not even how MySpace people did it technically. It's just kind of like the format of having like a top, so people can know who you are right off the bat, like get a sense of who you are by seeing your top things as something of like one of the first things they see or the first things they hear.
Okay, I think I did a great job.
Okay,
good. So the one I'll start off with is a song called Superstar by Lupe Fiasco. It was actually the first song that I memorized fully, and my mom helped me with it. And I think I often return to that song, like singing it, not realizing how much of an affirmation it was. That, like the line, like, if you are what you say you are, then have no fear.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I come back to that a lot because I think a lot of the times anxiety can perpetuate this idea that, like I'm not doing what I'm supposed to, or that I'm lazy or not aligned with the path that I know that I am, especially when I can look at anxiety objectively and say that you are not who I am. And so sometimes it can be just like a difficult discernment between anxiety and the actionable steps that I'm actually taking. And so when I hear that song, it's a reminder that, anxiety is just anxiety, just as thoughts are just thoughts. And so I hear that song and I'm just like, yeah, there's no need to fear anxiety. There's no need to fear any of it. It's like I am who I say I am, and I'm walking in the steps truthfully, confidently. And so for me, that song is a top 5.
Give us a little snippet, sing.
You want me to sing it?
Yeah.
If you are what you say you are, a superstar, then have no fear. The lights are here, and the light. Dun, dun.
I think that's all we're legally allowed to do.
Yeah, I can't in 5 seconds.
What's your second one? I sound like Donkey for a second.
And in the morning, I'm making waffles.
Waffles.
Is it pancakes or waffles?
Waffles.
Yeah, that's what, yeah. The second one that I'll say is imagination. Imagination was key to my childhood, key to my growth. It was inspired by myself and the man in the mirror, the kid in the mirror, the people around me. Oftentimes when I was at home, I would literally sit in front of the mirror and just make up different stories and make up different characters. And then when I felt confident enough in the bathroom, I would take it out to the living room and I'd perform it for my mom and for everybody else. And then we just kind of enjoy what I was coming up with. And when I was done, I just kind of laugh about it for a while. But that idea of creating something to perform for my family, but also for myself, kind of had a direct route to acting and a direct route to creating, and realizing how much I really just enjoyed bringing something into reality and bringing something to fruition. So imagination, though vague as a term, was really integral to me, to my childhood and my growth. It still is. It's still necessary. I think now it's about cultivating my imagination and cultivating that space to create and bring things to fruition.
Yeah. Right to the point, period.
And then I have a fictional character
Ooh.
that I spent a lot of time trying to figure out or remember, really, because there's a lot of things that I consumed as a child and in my youth that I was like, which one did I really resonate with? And it was the one that I resonated with more in feeling, more rather than dialogue and talking about. Excuse me. And that's Beast Boy from Teen Titans.
Oh.
Not only was he such a silly human being, but he had
human being? Wait, maybe he is.
Yeah,
is
he's
he?
human. He's a mutant. So he had mixed DNA with an X gene that allowed him to shapeshift.
Thank you for clarifying.
And turned his skin green. Nerds, fact check me on that. But yeah, he's human.
Period.
not only was he the silly character, but he had the heart of he had such a big heart, which I resonated with and felt like I wanted to follow in those footsteps. And I felt like sometimes people didn't always take him seriously on the team because of how silly he was. But I think like Avatar, when the world needed him most, he didn't vanish. He was right there at the
I was gonna say, did he vanish?
No, he didn't vanish. He was right there at the forefront, and he fought just like everybody else for what he believed in, for what he loved, and that's a kind of quality that I aspire to be like at all times, to always fight for what I believe in, fight for what I love. Yeah.
Hey.
So gotta put Beast Boy up there.
Fight for what you love.
All about love.
What's the next one?
Then I had sci-fi fantasy as a general genre.
Okay.
Yes, I read like a lot of YA novels, like Hunger Games, like what was that other one? It has this Glass one that I really, or Divergent. I read those, or Percy Jackson. But what I loved about those stories, that's comic books as well, but specifically sci-fi fantasy, allowed me to really have a lot of hope for the future, because I think you could do science fiction and it can be really grounded in the things that are wrong with society, but adding the fantasy aspect to science fiction allows us to kind of imagine what a greater world or a greater space might look like if you had just a couple of different aspects. And a lot of the there was this one, Maximum Ride, which was really interesting to me. Like all these different test subjects, these young teenagers who had mixed bird DNA and were able to get like these wings, but like they broke out of this facility and then had went on their own trying to escape for a really long time. And they like Teen Titans, like a lot of the things that I really enjoyed growing up. It was these ragtag group of chosen family that was able to kind of like find their way on their own, and to say that we're gonna do what is gonna be best for us. And I think I really attached to that as a kid, not realizing that I was like, that's how I want to live. That's the way I want to go. Not that I need to escape from my family or the people that have grown up with me, but to find a space where I can be my freest. And I thought like Maximum Ride was a great example of that, especially because they had wings and they were learning to fly. Great metaphors in that one. So that's why science fiction is also in my top 5.
I love that.
I feel like there's definitely a big core in my top 5. And then my last one is skateboarding.
Okay, nice.
Skateboarding because of how I feel when I'm skateboarding, and the way certain aspects of my journey feel as though they cement when I skateboard, and as things are kind of zooming past me, I get to kind of reflect in a different way than when I'm driving, than when I'm taking the train. There's something about skateboarding specifically when you can see 360 the world kind of zooming by you, that it feels like you're slowing down a little bit. And I really enjoy that aspect. And I started skateboarding when I was like 13 or 14. So I had a lot of time to sit with skateboarding. And I was really eager to try and learn tricks when I was younger and try and learn how to do tricks. But then I kind of, like, over time, started to enjoy casually riding and casually just cruising because of what I was just speaking about. And so I'm still interested in learning tricks, but it's not about trying to do something difficult when skateboarding. It's really about finding a flow, which is something else I could talk about for hours.
Right, I was about to say, you mentioned the word flow. We're about to get it up. We're about to get that conversation going. I'm like, that's a tangent that will be the episode if we let it.
Literally.
But I love that.
Yeah.
I love that you said sci-fi. I loved all of what you said, but I love that you said sci-fi too, because it's always so cool to me when I remember. Sometimes I'm watching something or reading something that's sci-fi, and it's cool to me when it hits me that, wow, this just came out of somebody's brain, and they like created this whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And especially in the moments when I'm in deep conversation about a certain sci-fi movie or TV show or whatever it is with a friend, and we're like getting into it, like getting into the relationships and like talking in the language that is the world.
Yeah.
I'm just like, Wow, this is so cool.
Yeah.
This is so cool to be having a whole full-on discussion about this stuff that it was just someone's imagination that someone just like came up with.
Right. And I think what's interesting is most things that we live inside of conceptually is something that somebody came up with. And so I was having a conversation with a friend a couple of days ago about our society and the construct in which we live in, and whether or not we could live in a society where the basic building block is everybody being able to live as their truest selves. And they had brought up the point that those kind of societies and spaces exist. It's just that, like, on a larger scale, we haven't accepted that because we want some kind of control, or we feel like there's a lot of fear based around it. And I was like, yeah, that's exactly right. And the fact that the kind of society that you want, if it can exist between two people, it can exist at a larger scale. Mm-hmm. And so, like, our imagination, that's to me why I enjoyed a lot of fictional worlds that were based in real values, because if they could create that in a fictional world, they could create that here. And so that gave me a lot of hope. I think that's really what birthed my optimism about a lot of things in life.
Ooh, that's a great encouragement for optimism. Being like, if they can do it, we can do it.
And if you can simply imagine it, you can bring it into reality. All the negative things in this world were based on someone's imagination as well.
That's true. Oh, speak on it.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody said, I'm going to create an environment so toxic.
I can't wait till we have the cut of you know who right there when you say that line.
I'm like thinking of her theme music.
Right.
I'm going to create an environment so toxic. Okay. Let's get on to these questions. I really love that. And I love that our viewers and our listeners get a chance to hear you and know you a little bit more based off of your top 5. And you spoke a lot about imagination and creativity, and I really love that. I feel like that's so on brand, and it's nice to hear you kind of touch back into the childhood years about how that really contributed to your development just as a human interacting with other people and as a human who likes to create art. Mm-hmm. I dig it. So we're going to get into the questions now. Hand to God. I dig it. Okay, so back to love, because now we're on to the topic of today's episode, which I'm, again, ecstatic about to be sitting here talking with you today. My first question is a big one, you know.
Yeah.
Sometimes we're starting, because sometimes we like to start with the heartfelt. I'm going to start with something that's a little challenging for some people. Okay, so sometimes in life, we move on from relationships with loved ones, like friends, lovers, family members, etc. Whether if it's intentional or the relationship has fizzled out, whatever happens, sometimes, you just move on. Mm-hmm. So how does the way you continue to love manifest in these new distance dynamics? All the time we don't just say, oh, I hate them, they're terrible. That's not always the case. Sometimes somebody could have done something to you and you don't want anything to do with them ever again, and there's a feeling of like distance and it's a dislike. But sometimes it's not always about that. It's not like that you think the person is terrible or you could have been in different areas of your life and different areas of growth where it's just like, okay, like Jeanette McCurdy was talking about, I don't think this is conducive to where I am right now progressing. Like, this relationship is holding me back because in this relationship it's based off of XYZ. In this relationship we talk about this type of thing a lot, and that's not the type of thing I want to keep putting out in the atmosphere anymore. And we're seeming to have a hard time getting that in our heads that if we can't change that, then I'm just going to have to move on. So there's a whole bunch of different examples of why it can happen. So you let me know, how does love continue to manifest in those distance relationships?
I have a couple thoughts. The first one is here for a good time, not a long time. Mm-hmm. The other aspect is all of us, through these dynamics, getting comfortable with letting go and acceptance. I think that's the most difficult part, specifically about friendships, when they either fizzle out or intentionally fall apart. I like to. I think the first thing I have to do is allow myself to feel whatever it is that I'm feeling about it, and kind of understand it, not in an analytical way, but move through it so that I can kind of look at it in a different way, so that I can talk about it to this person if I want to, or don't want to, or keep talking to myself about it. But I view that process as a version of mourning. And I think that that has to be okay, because we are letting go of what it used to look like and what it used to feel like and how that dynamic used to exist. So there is an aspect of something dying that doesn't mean that you have any malice towards this person in any way. And sometimes the relationship does change, um, um, hopefully not, but because of death. And you don't have a chance to have these conversations with the people that you would have liked to. Mm-hmm. So how are you? Yeah. So love has to manifest in holding space for what was, and not trying to judge how things separated, because that can kind of get a little muddy with how you start to view the person afterwards. But rather that, we're both two humans who are navigating this world and this space, and maybe I or they fell short of some things along the way, and but because of what we hopefully because of like the love that we shared as friends or as family or as loved ones, that I can still honor what was and say I really hope that the fact that we're not in that same space is for the best of us. It's for the best for the both of us. And something that's not so dramatic is like if you have like for my me and my friend Tyler, like I don't see Tyler at all right now, and we don't talk as much, but like I know that our friendship is always going to be there, and I know that the next time I see him, it's going to be like best bros, like as if we've been best bros when we were in college.
Taylor.
He's gonna be listening to this like, what?
He's gonna be like, not me catching straight. No. It's all love, literally.
It's literally all love, and I think for me, especially growing up, because I had a couple of friends that didn't carry from one, like from elementary school to middle school and middle school to high school. Like I had a really good friend in middle school, and then once I got to high school, once we didn't have that environmental, relational routine, all of a sudden our friendship started to fizzle out.
The convenience of proximity is a big one that people are not thinking about while you're in it, right, while you're consumed by it.
And so I just started to associate the fact that I was going to lose friends when I wasn't in the same space as them anymore, and that was just something that was my fault, and that I couldn't do anything about it. And so even when I went from high school to college, I was telling my friends, I was like, there's this thing that happens when I leave a different school and go to a different space. I just lose my friends, and I'm telling you this now. It doesn't mean I don't love you. It doesn't mean that I don't really deeply care about you or want to keep talking, but something's gonna happen. I didn't have the I wasn't connecting the dots.
Bless your heart.
I know, right? I wasn't connecting the dots of intention in that space. I wasn't connecting, but at the same time, me and Jeffrey have been friends since middle school and haven't stopped talking since. Yeah. It didn't matter but like that happened naturally as well. But there was a sense of intention, and there was a sense of also just wanting to keep in contact with what was happening in each other's lives. And so also with the different dynamics, not expecting one dynamic to have to look like another dynamic without associating hierarchy to it. So for me, how does my love continue to manifest? It's a lot of conversation. If I can, in those specific kind of dynamics, have conversations with the friend as things are starting to dwindle, or I talk about like what do we both want from this kind of friendship. If it's a loved one, I would like to take a look at what capacity I have for that relationship, because it might for family, if there's a disconnect, it might have been something like there might have been an instance or an experience that's causing us to be distant. And so what exactly do we what do I want still, or is there something that's necessary for our relationship to continue? Like with my dad, we have had times where we didn't speak for months, and then we'll speak for a lot longer, and a lot of that has to do with his idea of how he believes communication should happen, and a lot of it has to do with my fear of not upholding his expectations. And so when those two things meet, a lot of the times we just won't talk for a while. And so for me, it's like, okay, what can I change to foster and cultivate a relationship with my dad that I want to have, slash that's not, that's still within my capacity. That's not me making the relationship work. And so sometimes I manifested through conversations. Sometimes I had to also accept where he was at in his life. And so I had to like pick and choose when is the right time to have this conversation? How do I bring it up? And how do I also enjoy the time that I do get to spend with him when it's happening in the present? And then I think I could also talk about us in terms of being long distance as well. Me personally, I feel like the way we communicate, it always feels like we're right next to each other, whether it's like this or via text. Of course, I want to be in person. I always want to be in person.
Me too.
But I think we had a lot of conversations too about how we want, like what was happening as we were figuring it out through being long distance, and how we were having conversations and constantly checking in. But I'm not going to expect the way that we communicated about that to be the way I communicate with my dad about that, or the way I communicate with Jeffrey or Tyler about that. It doesn't mean I'm not having conversations, but each dynamic is going to necessitate something different. So I also say that to say that my love for these different distance relationships has to be case by case basis, which can also be exhausting, which then means I need to make sure that I have the capacity. It keeps coming back to, do I have the capacity? How do I want to make this dynamic work? Have we talked about it? Is there space for us to talk about it? And kind of like navigating that moment by moment. That has been my process when it comes to that, and with a little pinch of letting go of what it used to look like, of what I really enjoyed about our relational aspect, like of being in person, and being like, okay, well, that's just not what it is right now. Am I still okay with what it is? And am I still okay with what the dynamic looks like as it is right now? And if there is something about what it used to look like that I want, is there a capacity for me to bring that back into the space?
Sorry about that. We had a little technical snafu. We'll be back right after this.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that covers that.
I just wanted to give you a hug in that moment. I'm like, that was me. I forgot to put it on Do Not Disturb.
That's okay. But thank you for the hug.
Yes, you're welcome. I really love your... you. I really love you. I really love your explanation and the pinch of... it's a pinch, like a Salt Bay pinch.
Right.
I was kind of thinking about something my philosophy teacher in college said about how we are ever changing all the time at every single moment. So, a moment ago, I was Joska. Technically, I could call myself something else now in this next moment because I'm a totally different person than I was a moment ago. And sometimes I think about when relationships fizzle out, like, okay, the person I was right there, like when we were having a great time, when everything was all nice and copacetic and we were just experiencing life together, no hardships, quote unquote. Of course, challenges come up, but I'm like, that was a different version of me, and I shouldn't be upset that, like, I shouldn't blame myself for something not working. Like, especially if it just, like, naturally occurred to where it's like, okay, this relationship, like, for some reason, because I've had relationships that have fizzled out where it felt like, okay, for some reason, we're not trying. Like, it just, for me, my thing is, if you don't want to, don't. Like, don't force it. Like, there's nothing wrong with, don't feel bad if you actually don't want to be in this friendship with me anymore. If you have a different, naturally your environment is changing and you have different priorities, and it's not feeling like this is something you can really give any attention to without feeling forced. I'm like, I don't require a lot. I'm not really needy. So it's like, I'm like, if you don't want to, don't. It's not a bad thing. Like, don't get hard on you. That's why I'm like, most of not all of my relationships that have fizzled out or that I've had to end, it's kind of like, it wasn't actually, there's like never like malice, or like, it's never like, sometimes people do things that have let me down, and I'm just like, but I think it's a product of them trying too hard to like do what they might expect me to receive as they're doing something good, or they're doing something like that is contributing to a good friendship or something like that, when it's clearly and obviously forced. And I'm just like, okay, well, if you're not going to hold your word and you're not going to be honest with me anymore, you don't even talk to me about anything anymore when we do talk. Because for me, it's not like we need to talk all the time with everybody. Like, even us, like the way we communicate, we are very, very specific about how we want to communicate, or like, oh, we'll do phone calls here, or we're texting about something, or we talk in person. And sometimes, might not feel like having a phone call. Sometimes we might do a voice memo for something. So I feel like we get very specific. And for some people, it's not the amount, or it's not the quantity or the consistency of how often we communicate. But for me, it's the times, what is happening in the times that we have decided to communicate. Are we being productive with our relationship, in terms of, not that something needs to be done, but in terms of, this is an actual relationship? Or is it half-ass? Is it, I can tell that somebody is like not really in it, and I'm just like, well, why are we here? If you don't want to be here, don't be here.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's cool.
And I think sometimes, like, that aspect of half-ass, like, my anxiety might make me feel like I am half-assing it when I haven't seen a friend in a long time. But really, what's happening for me is that I need to just kind of fall back into a flow. And it's like, I haven't seen you in a while. And so I have to find us again for a second. But
I feel that.
The more that I've repeated that, the less I felt anxiety about it. And I'm just like, that's going to happen. And we're going to fall right back into it. I also feel like there are people, when they're trying to navigate like a new routine in their lives with new friendships, that their priority...
You had to sit up your back straight for that one. You had to straighten out your back straight out. That's fine for that. Their priorities.
Ooh. Yeah, that's it. Just hold on 1 second.
Ooh. Sound like you were stepping on a bag of Cheetos.
Oh, yeah. I'll do that later.
Can I crack my back?
Yeah.
Ooh. I don't know if you could hear that, but...
I heard it, though.
That was a little. Okay, continue.
Their priorities become aligned more with their anxiety of their new environment, their new routines, and so things fall to the wayside, and everything starts to become a task. And they're not able to put their full heart into things. So they're hanging out with friends and they're doing their work, but their heart is not in it. Not because their heart doesn't want to be in it, but because they're not actually taking time to get grounded and to be like, how am I organizing myself and grounding myself to connect, to be able to do the things I want to do, rather than being like, I have all this stuff on my plate and on my table, and I'm just gonna organize it in a way that looks organized, and it's gonna just be organized. It's like, okay, but do you care about where these things are placed on the table? Do you care about like actually coming back and picking things up and putting them down the way that you want, or is it just like, it looks organized, everything is in a place, and everything is fine? And I think some people who fall into that get confused as to why their friendships are falling apart, because they have done the work that they think that they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And I think that comes with an awareness of one's own fears and one's own heart. And so going back to even the first question of like how my love manifests through these distance relationships, I just am like, I really am sending love and hoping that you are showing yourself the same amount of love that I need to show myself now too.
Yeah, I was thinking too, there sometimes it's a disconnect between self-care and all the things that are going on in your life. Like feeling overwhelmed and like deciding to organize even the most earnest, true, genuine, like actual interpersonal relationships as like a thing on a to-do list, and that's kind of what it becomes, and you become really anal about those things. I feel like since you are the person that's doing that, I think sometimes there's a disconnect between like how you're taking care of your own self-love, maybe your own self-care. That's why I tell people to pamper themselves. Like pamper yourself, and you'll be surprised once you make that intentional and take the moments to be still and practice stillness and just like receive things. You'll be surprised how like the emotions flow, the connections get stronger, the everything like that, because when you're in tune with your center, like you can be present, like you can be present for other people, you can be present for yourself first and foremost, and then you could be present in your relationships. I've told people before that like, okay, like I want to be in relationships where we're enjoying it, and we last night at my friend's birthday party, I'm thinking about it now. I can't stop thinking about it because that just feels like something that environment just felt like something I've been praying for recently, like in terms of that genuine, I feel that we're supporting each other as friends. The conversations we have, I'm like, it's really getting down into it. And I've noticed in some of my friendships in the past that I had to put a pin in, or I had to say, okay, let's reevaluate this and maybe return to it. We'll see. That sometimes it was ego that got in the way. And I think that I just want to be in relationships where we can support each other and talk through our stuff and wow, really learn from each other. I love learning from my friends.
Yeah. The reciprocity of talking with your friends and the both of you being like, I support you in the way that you're living your life and you support me, allows you to grow in a different way too.
Yeah.
It's really beautiful.
It's beautiful.
It's so beautiful. It's all about love.
All about love. Okay. Here we go.
What question is this? 3?
The second one.
It's the second question?
Yes.
Okay.
The second question. We'll reel it in. We'll reel it in. We could talk for hours.
Literally.
That's literally what brought us together. So we could talk for hours, but let's reel it in and let's go move on to the second question. I want to know, how can we harness the power of love and understanding to foster stronger connections and bridge generational gaps between Gen Z millennials, whatever, and boomers and Gen X, whichever generation you can relate to and you have relationships with. And I think this is so cool that this is the next question, because you were mentioning your dad, who's obviously in a different generation than you, and there are a lot of different understandings between communication, between how relationships work for a lot of people in generations outside of millennials or Gen X or Gen Z, and people who are our parent generation. So how can we like bridge that disconnect, bridge that gap using love?
So many different ways. Like, there is the micro of me and my dad. There is then me and my family and my grandparents. Then there's the community and just the elders that exist in my community, whether that be like neighborhood or identity, how, like whatever community that different intersections that I exist in, and the elders that exist there. So let's start with the largest one, which is community. I think you want to see how the environment that you already live in, how the people who are older than you are affected by it. Like sometimes I think about like the disabled community too in New York City, and how less than 15% of housing is accessible. And so like the community of the people who are disabled affects all ages, but it definitely is disproportionate to people who are elders as well in terms of disability. So I can't imagine, I can't imagine / I don't know the experience of elders who are disabled and are losing housing, or can't afford their housing or have to switch to somewhere else, what that looks like. And already the fact that I don't have enough information means that I should be communicating with more people who are elders to learn from them and learn what it is that they need so that we can help them. Because in American society, we don't even value elders. We don't even really value people who are older than us. So like the society is built around the youth, and it built around like the ages like 15 to like 35. After that, you don't really matter anymore. Which is interesting because you can't even really go to what is it? You can't even run for certain positions in the government until you're past the age of 35. So it's interesting that they're giving more space to elders to run a nation which is only built around the youth. So in terms of love, I do think it's a two-way street. I think that we have to be willing and wanting to learn about both how elders are impacted today and now, but also about their past and about how what they went through is a cycle that's happening for us or not. And I think that elders also have to be willing or wanting to learn about how our experience at this age is vastly different from theirs, in a way that's still helping them in the now, and how like we can talk about the different gaps in our age in our age experience that would kind of maybe elevate us a little bit quicker. In different cultures, specifically like a Khan that my family is a part of, there is a really integral relationship between the grandparents and the elders and the youth, like having that like especially like babies and grandparents or elders, like having that connection, make sure that they're connected, is almost tying a circle of the entire family together, so that we like this idea of Sankofa, where there's a Sankofa bird in Yoruba and Akan religion, which states that you have to go back you have to go back to the past to fetch so that you can look forward. Which doesn't mean you have to exist in the past or live in the past or do things that only exist in the past. But if we don't know where we came from and how we got to where we are, we're not going to be able to move forward. We're going to be reliving cycles that we don't even know are occurring in front of us. And I think the only way for that to really truly flourish is for us to continue to speak to the people who are older than us, and for the people who are older than us to also want to speak to us. I would encourage a humbleness on both sides of there's so much that I don't know, for both people who are older, people who are younger. Of course, I'm saying this is somebody who's younger, but I think that that's the best way for things to go. Also, especially with your podcast of being 25 and like going through this transition and these ideas of like our frontal cortex being fused together, it's like there's people have already been through what we've been through millions of times, and there's so much information out there on how to navigate this space that already exists with people above us. But sometimes people who are older than us aren't willing to share it so candidly for whatever reason. But that could even enter a bigger conversation about like what was going on for you during this age, and how that impacted your the way that you started to block yourself off at this age. Like what shifted? Yeah.
No, yeah, for sure. I feel like love begets empathy. And even though we can't fully relate to a different experience, even if they were our age at one point, they had a totally different environment, totally different technological standpoint, totally different relationships around them, and just like the society was built different. The society was built different. Rent was berries and bananas, and now we're here. But
you know what I think about too. Like, let's think about the idea of the jester from like the Victorian age. I think like the jester has been reincarnated to become the ringleader at the circus, and the ringleader has been reincarnated to now become, which might be a big jump for some people, like the news anchor. It's like the person who's giving us information and kind of like taking us through the chaos of what's going on around us. Maybe not the news anchor, but there are, even though things were different in the past, there are reiterations of ideas and roles that we have played throughout time. And if you don't know what role you would have played hundreds of years ago, you're going to be repeating whatever issues that role played back then. So like let's say you're the scientist, but you have no even though I don't know how to be possible. You don't have any real knowledge of what Einstein went through to understand how energy equals mc squared. Then you might go through that process and discover it and then think that you're the first person to do it, but you really didn't do anything new. You really didn't bring anything into fruition because you don't have enough information to know that you're repeating a cycle.
You said old news.
Old news. And it's not bad to repeat it that way, but you could get much farther. There's a proverb that states, if you want to go fast, go alone. And if you want to go far, go together. And that together aspect, to me, is not just the people that are my age.
Mm-hmm.
That has to do with my entire family, both chosen and blood, like people who are older than me. And so for us to go together, that means I have to go at the same speed as the slowest person.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds like something we used to talk about in dance, like a concept we used to talk about in dance. Like, you can't just do whatever you want in certain environments that you're with community, especially when you all are supposed to be moving together, and that's the purpose, and figuring things out together. Like, you can figure things out in a whole bunch of different, that can look like a whole bunch of different things. So that's interesting. Like, or when people say you're only as strong as your weakest person, and that doesn't mean that, oh, you're only as strong as your weakest person. Like, or the fact that you have a weak person.
Right.
The point is that you're supposed to, you have a responsibility to help to do this as together as like a team.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like the fact that you're only as strong as your weakest person is insinuating that that you all are on the same team.
Right.
And that you're supposed to be helping people who are on your team. Not the fact that someone's weak and like, ooh, someone's weak, you know.
And in sports, when that idea is brought up, they actually encourage like that the weakest person is like the baseline of the strength that they want in terms of how fast they are or speed or whatever. Like, the weakest person isn't actually weak. It's just like, it's a hard concept. I don't like to use the word weak. That's why I said slowest.
Yeah,
And slowest doesn't have to mean intelligence. I was more thinking physically in terms of like a path and running. So whatever slowest looks like, whatever accommodations are needed, whoever needs the most accommodations is the speed we should be moving at.
Yeah.
I think that's a better way of thinking about it.
Right. You're only as strong as your person who needs the most accommodations.
It doesn't flow off the tongue quite like weakest,
right.
but
it doesn't hit like that K, but okay, let me get into the last question because it's very on brand with what we've been talking about anyway, but taking it into a slightly different direction with communication and with like a disconnect in communication. More specifically, zoning into those moments where there's been a disconnect in communication. And how do you go about trying to resolve that without hurting someone's feelings or invalidating someone's feelings? We'll say that because you don't have really any control on whether you've hurt someone's feelings. But if you're into something that's intentional, is I feel like invalidating someone's feelings, because we've all probably have an instance of where we felt that someone says, "You're not allowed to feel sad right now. You're not allowed," and that's what I kind of mean, because that happens. Like, people get into that trap where they are like, they feel weird because they're like, I only did this. Like, what? Why are you mad? Like, you have no, that type of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's something that we talk about a lot. One, you want to stay curious even at that point when you're frustrated.
Hey.
You want to
stay. Shurbaranda. Hey. Amen.
Hallelujah. You wanna stay curious. You wanna ask questions. I think what's most helpful, let's say like you're in a heated space and you are about to invalidate someone's experience or whatever they might have just been talking about. I think it's good to repeat what they've said, repeat what they've expressed that they felt, and then talk about your perspective on it. So I think that's a good way to not invalidate those people, like anyone's feelings in that conversation.
Oh, you have a formula. I like that.
That's something I learned. Someone taught that to me in terms of like having a conversation. Like repeat back what you just heard, but not even when you're invalidating, but just like when you're trying to understand information.
Yeah,
repeat back
before you even get a chance to validate, because some people do it and they're a little bit unconscious about what they've just done.
You want to, yeah. I think it's important to repeat back. And sometimes for me, it's helpful too, especially when someone asks me a question. Repeating the question back so that my body and my mind understands it too, and then I answer the question. I was fortunate enough to read these questions beforehand, so I was ready. But
yes.
I think the difficult thing is that people know that they can do that. They don't want to do that because ego gets in the way. / they're like, I am so sure of my perspective on what you did and how it manifested that there's no way that there's no other perspective that it could be. This is what happened, and and this is why you did it wrong, and this is how you should be responding to what I have to say now. And I feel like, what's the goal with that? What's the goal with that? You just want to express your anger? To me, that's not to put a hierarchy on it, but I do think that might be a lower level of emotional intelligence in that moment.
Damn.
It doesn't.
Shawty got a low EQ.
I mean, I think we've all experienced it. I'm definitely not exempt from that.
Yeah, no, yeah, for sure. I was just thinking when you just mentioned ego that I can definitely recall times, even between me and you, that I started to let ego in the way, and I knew it, and I wasn't going to admit it, but I knew it in the moment. And I'm thinking about a specific time, like it was like at the beginning of when we were seeing each other, like in 2020, and I was like so sure you had said something, and I was just like, why are you trying to deny that you said this? We never.
I remember that.
I was just like, not that me and you never like argue, but like I'm just sitting here because I'm just such a chill person. Like you won't catch me yelling at no mofo. I'm just gonna. I get mad, I get frustrated, but it's not like I don't think you can listen when you're yelling at somebody. So I'm not gonna do that. That's theatrics to me.
I'm so lucky.
Right. I mean, we don't argue like that. We have discussions.
Right.
But I'm just like, that's theatrics because like, why are you yelling? We're gonna have to wind it back anyway, and by that point I'm wasting my breath, so I'm not gonna yell. I'm not gonna listen to you while you're yelling. Didn't hear what you just said. But anyway, I'm gonna have if somebody's yelling at me, I'm gonna have a blank look at my face and be like, the calmest thing is gonna come out of my mouth next, and they're gonna be so confused. I'm just like, yeah, but why are you yelling? Like, I don't know.
And I almost think what's interesting too about you is that yelling is such a visceral experience that you actually use it to expel a lot of feeling, like when you're driving in a car sometimes, or like a space to oh
yeah, I'll scream and release and do stuff like that.
It's a thing for release. It's not a thing to point towards another person,
right?
Which to me is what's that word with the I, is indicative of your emotional intelligence being very high. And your brain.
I sort of got a high
EQ. Sorry, man, you were talking. What were you saying?
I think I might have. I was just gonna mention that time. I remember that I got you confused with because I couldn't remember at the moment, and I let my ego get in the way. Even when it came back to me, when I remember, oh, that was actually my another friend who said that, and not you.
Yeah.
I was like still keeping it up for a few minutes because I was embarrassed. Like my ego was getting in the way. I was just
I didn't know that.
I went so hard about this, and then in my head, as we were talking through it, in my head, I realized, and I had already. It was like when I said, "Okay, I don't want to talk about this anymore right now. Is it okay?" I was like, "Is it okay if we, like, pick this up later or something? Like, I'm a little frustrated, and I just don't want to talk right now." And so we just were like silent for a little bit, and then I came back and I said, "I'm sorry. I remember what happened."
I remember that. I forgot about that.
I was like dropping my pride on the highest degree, and I was just like, the only reason that I thought you said it is because I remember it was not, I remember it was in my room whatever it was. I don't even remember what was said. And it wasn't anything bad. It was just something that I thought I remembered that you said.
Right.
It wasn't even a big deal.
Right.
Like nothing negative, but You were like, I didn't say that. And I was like, what are you talking about? But when I remember who actually said it, I was like, and then I explained to you the only reason that I thought you said that was because I knew it was said in this bedroom, and I knew that it was a man who said it. For some reason, that's all the concept in my head that I could connect to. And I was like, I ain't never had no other man in this bedroom. So I was just like, I don't know.
Now, you said that too.
I said, I don't know. I couldn't remember. But then I remembered I had another male friend who came over, and, we were just hanging out, and he said it that day when he was there, and I was like, I totally didn't think of that. Like, I totally wasn't thinking about that. But that was interesting how my mind was like, it was a man, and it was in your room, had to be Dante.
Right. That's crazy.
Yeah, I was like, that was literally the only reason.
And I also think I'm very well known for being forgetful a lot of the times too. So it could have made sense that I would have forgot that, just been like, I don't know what you're talking about.
And I think you told that to me too.
Yeah, I was saying that pretty early anyway. But I know when I've forgotten, and I know when I remembered.
Yeah,
it's not true.
Some people will, quote unquote, say that you put words in their mouth. I'm thinking about like little. It's hard, like, especially disconnects with family members sometimes, and I'm just like, sometimes there's not always going to be a way. There can always be a way to not invalidate their feelings intentionally. Like, intentionally, you're not invalidating their feelings, but they can feel invalidated anyway. But sometimes I think, I'm sitting there like the ego on the other side of the ego of the person I'm talking to is so high for some reason, and I'm like. They're like, why can't you just be this? Why can't you just be that? I'm like, why can't you be all those things? Like, you're exempt from forgetting that you said something. You're exempt from just XYZ, just like a whole bunch of different things. I'm just like, you can forget that you said something. I'm like, we have witnesses over here who were around when you said it. And still, like, 4 people could have heard you said that, too. And you're just like, I never said that. Y'all are always putting words in my mouth. I'm like, okay, at a certain point, I'm sitting there thinking that you said it. You're just in too deep at this point, and you're not going to admit it. And that's just the way my mind just drifts sometimes. I'm like, I can't, this is not productive.
Yeah.
So there are certain instances where it's different. But for me, like what you were saying, it's just about, it's about having those steps where you can actually process it and make sure you're understanding, make sure you're receiving them before you just fly off at the trap, because it's not that deep. You're there for a purpose. You're there because you want to understand. Why don't you?
And I would say, of course, we're humans with a...
The top was on. I said...
We're humans with an emotional dynamic spectrum. So this is not to say that this is that you're always going to be able to do that formula every single time. So in the event that you miss a step or you're not following whatever protocol is going to be helpful towards validating someone else's feelings, although it should become nature pretty quickly. But if you don't do that while you're in the process of finding that for yourself towards other people, don't apply shame to the moments when you didn't do it.
Hey, that's a good point.
Even though you know you're trying to, because that's only gonna put you into a deeper hole, and you're gonna fall right back into the thing you don't want to do, which is invalidating someone else's feeling. Because now you're just focused on yourself. You're not. You just, the thing to do in that moment is just to continue to focus on trying to reconnect with the person that's in front of you. Or you might need time to just sit with it before you return to the conversation. But that's something I run into, or have run into a lot, not necessarily with this instance, but when I'm trying to implement new routines into my life. And I know that I'm trying to do the routine, and then I'm in the process, I didn't do a step that I wanted to do. And so I'm applying shame to it, which then starts to like compound into anxiety. And then now I'm laying in my bed cuddled until the next time that I feel I can do it again. But then I'm in my bed and I didn't do it, and I'm like, fuck, I wanted to do it, and now I'm not doing it. And so now you can get into a pitfall about that. So I think like the way to get out of that, even when you're that deep, is just remember that you're applying shame to what's happening, and you don't need to, and that you can start again at any time, and you can pick right back up where you left off. There's no like linearity to any of it, and to a certain extent, shame might be a part of the journey, But when you're experiencing it, just don't keep applying it. Recognize it, see it for what it is, and then that's when you would show yourself some love. That's when you would show the other person some love. Because more often than not, if you are in that process of trying to get to that kind of space, there's empathy that's going to come up the minute that you show your love to yourself for whatever's going wrong, per se. So, I'm going to zip the lip now.
Zip the lip. No, I'm just kidding.
For anybody watching,
that was
Golden
very
Bachelor.
fruitful. Mm-hmm. Right, Golden Bachelor is awesome. They're so cute. Yeah, that was very fruitful. I hope our listeners really get something from that, because I know I did. I know that communicating with people can be stressful sometimes, and even admitting when there's a disconnect can be stressful, because sometimes you want everything to be all peachy keen all the time, and it's like, damn, I don't even feel like there being a riff right now. That's not my energy. That's not where I want to be. But you have to address things as they come, and that's why you got to just put it into practice. Mm-hmm. But you have some questions for me.
Yes.
And I'm interested to see what's going on with that.
What do you mean you've been listening this whole time and you haven't subscribed yet? I don't see what the holdup is. The button is right there. And while you're at it, follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You obviously like the show.
Okie dokie. Y'all ready, listeners? My first question.
Oh.
Love has many forms. Familial, platonic, romantic, self, etc. What are some ways that you enjoy cultivating the love you have in your life right now?
What are some ways that I enjoy cultivating
the love? Yeah.
Right. So I think this is we're like communication. Anyway, I was just gonna say communication for real, like talking to people. I think I like learning about like some of the things in all my different relationships, like familial, romantic, just all of them, like friendships, platonic. What I really enjoy, and I noticed this last night too while I was at the party talking to my friends, I really enjoy when I notice something about them, and we can have a conversation, and I'm asking them, like, how did this come to be? That's kind of what I love about people. I love the way people are, and I'm attracted to different aspects of people's just like self, just like how they show up, their personality, their passions, and I'm just so curious all the time. I'm just like, last night I asked my friend, like, she was explaining something, like, explaining her, like, background and what she used to really enjoy and what she really used to devote her time to growing up, and then I was just wondering, wow, so what made you decide to explore acting? Because it wasn't evident or wasn't apparent in her background, and I was just like so curious. I was like, I think that's really cool. I want to see like where this hearty thing that you just talked about led itself to what you now do. Mm-hmm. And that's just such a simple concept. People might think or agree that that's such a simple concept, but sometimes I'm just like, some people don't take the time to ask that. They're just like, okay. But I'm just like, no, wait, what was your journey with that? Like, literally, like I'm an interviewer interviewing something. Not that it's that formal, but I'm just like, I really want to know the full human that I'm consuming. And I think that's a big part of the love, and the ways I cultivate love is making people feel heard, because I actually want to know. And I think that's really something that people can see when we're talking. And I think another way to let people know that you're hearing them is keep being inquisitive, keep asking questions, ask questions about stuff they talk about, ask questions about things that maybe they didn't talk about, but maybe something they said reminded you of something else, and you're like, oh, that reminds me of such and such. Do you have any experience of that, or have you heard of that? Like, sometimes I'm just like wondering, because I'm like, oh snap, or do you know this, or do you know that? And it just leads to a whole bunch of varieties of different conversations where we're able to just learn so much more about each other and really love the human being that we are. And I just think that's beautiful. I just think it's so cool how unique everyone is. And
unique?
Unique? Yes, and that's what really draws me in. Like, you're so different from me, and I love that.
You know what I think? What I also love about the way that you love other people is
What you love about that?
you will point out other people's idiosyncrasies that you really love. Like in BAI, you would be like, Maria, I just love your laugh. Like, you would say that often. Or you would be like, I really miss this person's energy. Like, where was this person today? Like, you would point out the things that you love about them. And I remember another friend of mine was saying that, was pointing out that often most people, when they think of a compliment for somebody else, will wait until that person leaves the room to say it. And you've missed that opportunity. But you will take the opportunity every single time. The moment that you notice it, you're like, I really love that thing about you. I really love what you're doing right now, or like how you're doing it. And so I really appreciate that.
I love making people. I love letting people know that I see them. I love that, and I think that sometimes we get lost in the sauce, and it's just like, wait, why are we here? Not that it's bad that we're here, but like, how did we get here?
Yeah.
Like, why are we so pull towards one another? And it's a valid question to ask. And I think with laughs specifically, that's interesting because I love laughs. I'm always like, I love hearing people laugh. I love the way it makes me feel to hear a laugh of a loved one. And I don't know, it's just like that release of dopamine I feel when hearing someone I really love laugh. Like when you mentioned Marie's laugh, I was like, yeah, I just remember that so vividly.
Right.
I was just like, love that laugh.
Right.
Like, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a way to just have people in the moment know how much you care and how much you love. And it's just such a natural thing. It's the root of our existence. It's why we are what we. It is what we are, and it is why we are what we are. So, I just feel it's always going to be flowing through me. And if I have an instinct to point something out that I love about you, I won't hesitate.
That's true.
That's true.
Okay. To my second question. How has your understanding around love evolved over the years, and in turn impacted your connection to spirituality?
That's a good one. I was a funny little kid. I think about this a lot because I used to journal a lot as a kid. I keep saying I was made to do these things. When I say I was made to journal, I don't mean like somebody put the pen in my hand and took my wrist and forced me to journal, but I was made to journal as like a daily like routine at homeschool especially. And I just like wrote a lot out about what I felt like all these concepts that were coming to my life meant. And I had examples of all different types of love around me. And I had friends that I had some great friends even when I wasn't surrounded by that many kids. Like when I was dancing, I met some great people through dance. And then I was also aware of the people that I didn't like in terms of knowing those reasons why I wasn't connecting to another kid. Like I was like very hyper aware of that. I'm like, Mom, she's not allowed to come to my 13th birthday because she can't keep her mouth shut. So like I was always like, I'm gonna let you know. Like now, my mom's like, we have to invite her because she's in your class and everybody else in your class is coming. And of course, she came to my party and she goes, I know why such and such ain't here because blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh my God.
She's like that kid from the Polar Express.
Yes. It is. I'm like, some kids were just, and I always felt a lot older than I was, especially as in high school, especially, but also as a kid, I was looking at my world like, sometimes I even wish I could have been in the moment even more because I was taking a step back and saying, like, this is so, like, juvenile. And I don't know why, because it was supposed to be juvenile. But it was just, like, some of these kids are, yeah.
Wow, juvenile.
Yeah, I was like, some of these kids are annoying. Some of these kids are very immature. And I'm like, but we're kind of supposed to be, but I'm not on that same type of immaturity wavelength. I was immature in many ways. I'm not saying I was, like, an adult kid, but because I'm a kid adult right now, so it wouldn't have made sense if I was an adult kid. But in certain ways where I feel like I had the snap, like I had it together,
Yeah.
quote unquote, as much as that looks like for a kid that age, I was like, some people I'm surrounded by don't have that particular aspect together, and it was like annoying me at times. But I was like very cognizant of the just like the connections I had with my friends and with my family. And I was noticing this, especially about all my siblings, but I was noticing this as I got to really watch, and I guess since I got to watch my little brother grow up, like from birth to where he is now as a 16-year-old kid. And my sister too, but I can really remember his a little bit more vividly.
Yeah.
I was just like, wow, I can see how you really grow to love someone while watching them grow, like love them in different ways. I'm like, I really love that kid. Like just the different moments, and just like my understanding was that like eye contact, looking into someone's eyes, and just like physical touch sometime, like holding someone in a warm embrace. Like I used to put him to sleep when he was a baby. A lot of the times, like like have him on my chest. I love when I used to pat his little back. I don't know if he remembers. Like I had like very sensitive neck, and I was like, ooh, it would tickle if he like, but he would like to like lay his head right in that little groove right here between my like shoulder and like my ear.
Me too.
And I would be like this. I would be like, because I was like,
You just squeeze his head?
not hard, but I'm like, ooh, that tickles. But I don't know, just like little cute moments, and I noticed that love had a lot to do with my understanding of love back then. Had a lot to do with experiences shared, and like creating those moments and making those memories, and I really hold that really strongly to this day. But it's about the moments of connection, just like through all the ways you can connect, through all the meanings of connection, like physically, like when I purposefully look into people's eyes and like see like the essence of who they are as a human, and you can really tell who people are. Sometimes you get a good quick like flag go up, and it's just like, nope, not this one. Thank you, sir, have a good day. And then sometimes you're meeting someone and you're like, wow, all I had to do was look. All I had to do was look in your eyes, and we can go from here. So it's cool. I think it's cool thinking about how my understanding and how my definitions have evolved, because I think they haven't really changed so much as they've expanded.
Yeah.
I
love that. And I really see that. And you have this warmth in your eyes that really, I think, is welcoming. And so it's nice to hear how you receive that from other people, because you really give that.
Oh, I hope I give it. I love community. You already know.
Let me get into this next question.
What's the next question?
My next question.
What is it?
Many young people long for love, and some fear they will never have it. What are some ways that you think people can acquire the tools and insight needed to perceive love as something readily attainable rather than an elusive, intangible longing?
I like this question a lot, because it doesn't have to be romantic love, but for the sake of this question specifically, I'm going to talk about romantic love. Because, of course, I have single friends, and we talk about relationship stuff a lot, on and off. However, I think sometimes hearing the complaints or the longings or just like the words they use to describe, sometimes I even encourage a different language around it when someone is talking about like finding a partner and all the things like that, because also not just that I'm like, you're thinking about this wrong. That's not even it at all, actually. What it is that I know when I was in this spot, because like I remember like at the beginning of the pandemic, at the very beginning of the pandemic, when I was talking to my oldest brother on the phone. And I was just like, I just don't know, like, if anybody wants to have a real, like, love experience. I don't know. I'm just like, I don't know what's going on. Like, I was going through some weird stuff in college in terms of just like trying to date people, or knowing that I had a connection with someone, or that or at least someone was attracted to me and we could start from there. And then a lot of my experience was people just backing out of it, like, or from the jump they knew they didn't want to be serious with it, which is valid if you communicate that in the beginning. But if I'm under a different impression and I ask you and you never said that, it gets kind of weird.
Yeah.
I think something that I encourage a lot of the time is just don't focus too much on like trying to scour, like trying to like what in my head, the visual that I see for some reason is like somebody with a metal detector, like on the beach, just like trying to look for like solid metal or like gold or whatever you be looking for with your metal detector. Like I picture that a lot when people are talking about like wanting to be in a relationship. I do think that the best ones come when you've gotten yourself kind of together first, and that's actually not the aspect. You're always going to be working on yourself. Like, you're never going to, like, I have it together, ding, now relationship is going to come. But I think the priority shouldn't really ever be desperate for a partner.
Right.
It should be, like, desperate for an understanding of yourself. Because once you know yourself, you'll know what's going to work for you. So that's why I was just like, I was always learning myself. And I'm like, even as we came together, I noticed that, like, through a relationship, because also I think people also don't realize sometimes how tough it could be, like how tough relationships can be, and not that things are going bad, but it's like a big adjustment too if you've been single for a long time. Or for me, I was just like, I was never in any real long-term relationships before this, so it was just like, yeah, I was kind of single forever. The people who I've dated gonna be looking at this like, well, damn. But anyway,
well,
hey, like, be for real, right? Because I know I have a lurker out there, so, or maybe a few, who knows?
Zoom into my face,
right? but yeah, I wish that I could explain it. In my head, I'm like, it's so clear, but I wish I could explain it in a way even better, that even clearer for people to just know that it's going to come when you least expect it, one, I feel, or like if you were trying and it just happens to work, I feel like you're going to learn a lot about yourself through it than you realize, like, because you're always trying to like see, okay, what is it that will be a good balance with me? Who is it that could be a good flow with me? And you're just always like, that's what I was saying before, you really have to take people in. You really have to take people in and don't waste any time with that. And I think people's biggest complaint for me, kind of from what I've heard, kind of seems like the environment that they're in. For example, oh, these New York City boys, or these LA boys, right. Or I think there's exceptions to every rule. I just think there's going to always be exceptions to every rule. And that's why I tell people, don't let nobody talk you out of a hobby. Get a hobby. Find somebody find a hobby that gives you access to community. And my next thing is, because I'm specifically decided to talk about this in a sense of romantic love, don't be afraid to just be friends with somebody. If they can't handle being your friend, or be in an environment where it makes sense that you would be friends. Like, you're not going to this environment to find a partner.
Right.
You're going to this environment to, like, I don't know, do a crochet class, for example. That's just the first thing that came to mind. And maybe you hang out as a group. My thing is, like, don't hang out with them one-on-one for a while. Like, hang out with them in a group setting if you can. And like, have a little kiki with your crochet club. And then, like, you know, as you start to grow your friendships, maybe you never know what could happen. I'm like, I'm always like, get to know somebody for real.
Right.
It really take in a person, be their friend before you be there. I was trying to find another F word, didn't come fast enough. Just be their friend first.
Right. And I think, like, with every relationship that we have, romantic, platonic, they are going to be a reflection of yourself. Not like what they're doing is like who you are, but how you exist in that dynamic is going to reveal things about who you are. So, if you think that finding love, romantic love, is going to solve all the issues of who you are, then you are mistaken, my friend.
It's not.
It's only going to open things up. And if you are in a beautiful love, in a beautiful, beautiful love, then you're going to have a lot more expansion for how you even understand yourself and how you are showing yourself love. And that's going to keep coming up often. So it would behoove you to love yourself first, and to make sure that you, and to have that instilled in you, that when you meet anybody romantic or platonic, that they're going to show you parts of yourself that you either already know, a deeper part of that, or something that you haven't yet understood quite yet. And so it could be nice to find a love where there's space and expansion for you to still continue to learn about yourself, while also fostering this relationship with somebody else, so that y'all both can evolve together and it works in a nice, beautiful, cohesive way.
Yes, I agree with that. I think people also have very valid, like, desires, because people want that connection, and people want that best friend that they are in love with, that they share a life with, and you just, you have to take the steps to really be able to get what you deserve, get all that love and get all that joy that you deserve, and not settle for anything less than that.
I think what you said about the hobbies thing is that's like kind of a little golden ticket right there. Go do something that you love with the community, you might find your lover.
Right, you could. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Okay, we have to get out of here soon, unfortunately. It's making me sad. So we're going to start wrapping this up with our last little activity, which is Old TV Big 3. As you know, we're going to take a TV show. You're going to take a TV show.
Yes.
3 characters from the TV show to tell us your sun, moon, and rising. And what's the TV show, and who are you choosing?
Before I say that, my actual astrology sign is Aquarius sun, moon, and Taurus rising.
Okay. Locked in.
Got it. My TV show is Teen Titans.
Okay.
From when, everybody knows Teen Titans. Not Teen Titans Go!
Teen Titans!
That one. So my sun is Beast Boy. My moon is Beast Boy.
Whoop, sorry about that. We had a little technical snafu. We'll be back right after this. Okay, hang on.
Okay. So my sun is Beast Boy. My moon is Beast Boy. And my TV show is Teen Titans. And my rising is...
You said your
I said it already. And my rising is Robin. Yeah? So Beast Boy, sun, because I think I'm, like, super silly, and I think, like, I have a really large heart. And if you've watched the Teen Titans show, you would see that how, like, his emotional side, in terms of when he has, like, when he's in high stakes, he can get really exaggerated with his emotions, and I feel like I relate to that. On the flip side, I chose Robin as rising because he has, like, this stoicism and this idealism of trying to get things right and of trying to live up to Batman. Like, and this Robin specifically is Dick Grayson, for those who don't know, and for maybe you don't know, Dick Grayson is the very first Robin in the iteration, so he feels like he has to live up to Batman, and he also has to set an example for all the other Robins after him. But he wants to be the best that he can be, and even be better than Robin. And so sometimes I feel that in terms of having a perfectionism around my own craft, but also when I get into a flow when I'm working with other people or working in general, it's like, how can we do this in the most efficient way possible? Is what we're doing helpful to how we're moving forward? And I also feel like Robin has both his feet planted on the ground. So I feel like that's why I would say that that's my rising, while also being a sun beast boy, of being very silly and joking. And so there's like a great balance there. But yeah, I was contemplating if Robin was the right one for rising, but okay. I think that Beast Boy is definitely right for sun and moon.
I like Robin for rising.
Yeah.
I can see it. I can see it.
Yeah.
You wanted me to do one from Teen Titans?
Yes, I want you to give me the big three from Teen Titans.
Okay. I think I probably have a Starfire son. A little bit of, I don't know, I just feel like she kind of gave me Cancer energy. Like, I don't know, she was very hopeful, very enthusiastic, and just, I don't know, just light and airy. And I feel like, and flowy and watery.
Elegant,
okay?
regal, royal.
Right. See.
But she's literally a princess.
Yes,
Yeah.
but I'm saying, like, you're making the connection that. But yes, I think that Starfire's son. Let's see, Moon. Moon. Out of all of them, who would be my Moon? I'm glad this is a good show to do for this exercise or activity, because all of them have such distinct characteristics and personalities. Gotta love them. But who do you think my Moon would be?
I feel like your Moon could also be Starfire. I just wouldn't say it's Raven because she's not super.
No, I wouldn't
expressive.
say Raven. Yeah.
No.
Maybe it is Starfire as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Man, you have a double Sun and Moon.
Yeah, that's true. So I have a Cancer sun, Cancer moon. Starfire sun, Starfire moon. I see it. I see the vision. Rising. I feel like I might have a Beast Boy rising. I feel like, or maybe Cyborg rising.
I see that too. Yeah. I was going to say either or, Cyborg or Beast Boy.
Yeah.
I forgot about one of the major parts about Beast Boy that I really relate to is his ability to adapt to different situations with his powers, being a chameleon of, like, different animals. But he doesn't only change into the animal that fits the situation correctly, but wherever his emotion is at. So sometimes when he would get really sad, he might, like, turn into a chipmunk. And when he was really angry, he might turn into, like, a bear. And so sometimes I
Help the bear.
That bitch gonna need it. I could not say it. Sometimes he didn't have the ability to only choose the animal that was right for the situation. It was like, if he was rageful or if he was feeling this thing, that the animal that would relate the most to that emotion would come out.
I loved that, yeah.
So I forgot that part, yeah. And sometimes I feel like it's really easy for me to adapt to, like, different environments. I'm like, not necessarily what version of me is needed, but how do I need to navigate this space based on its capacity? And sometimes that might also have to do with where my emotions are in relation to it. So I feel like that.
I like how you feel like that.
I feel like that. I like how I feel like that too.
That was a good show. That was good character choices.
I almost chose Avatar: Last Airbender, but there's not enough characters to choose from.
There's enough characters to choose from.
Now, when I started thinking about it, I'm like, a lot of them are really similar.
You think they're really a lot of them? I think like.
I
think I could say mine. I definitely could say mine.
Yeah, I
anyway.
can say mine too.
Okay. You're like, okay, yeah.
Yeah, I got Sokka's son, I got King Boomy Rising, and I got Zuko Moon.
What? What do you mean? What? What's going on?
Yeah, and I would say King Boomy Rising because...
I would say I'm definitely, without a doubt, a Katara sun.
Yep.
A Katara moon. And I don't know, it's kind of giving the rising is kind of complicated for me to choose just one. I wish I could fuse a couple of them together for the rising.
You can.
I feel like it's kind of tough. It's kind of going to tough in terms of thinking about who's the most.
Yeah.
Who's the hostess with the mostest for my rising.
Right. I feel that.
Yeah, because and especially with me having Katara as the sun and moon, and the balance of those two, because they can butt heads sometimes, they can work together really well.
Right.
And that's just how I feel. And yeah, I want to bend water. I want to bend earth in the air. I want to do all of that.
Yeah, I see that for you.
I remember I used to think I could bend water. Anyway, that's another...
Me too, especially in the shower, you know? And I'll quickly say I chose Sokka, obviously, because comedic on the forefront. I chose King Bumi because he's very silly. He's very eccentric, but he has like this, especially the King Bumi that we meet in the show, has this wisdom to him that's grounded in the ground, and he's from the Earth Kingdom as well. And then I struggled with the Moon in terms of the emotional aspect because a lot of these characters are such archetypes. But reformed Zuko towards the later seasons, I would say, is my Moon because he is so...
Reformed Zuko.
He's so passionate still, and he still has this eagerness to, in a perfectionism that isn't rooted in evil, but in trying to do good, while trying to eliminate his shame around what he's done in his past. And so the shame for me comes from like anxiety, while also trying to like strive for the goodness and everything.
I see that. I was trying to see where Sokka could fit, literally because of the funny goofiness in me. It could probably be a different one that's not in the big three, maybe.
Yeah.
I like these.
Yeah.
I like these. I don't want to end it. I never do. You already know.
But our relationship is not ending.
Just the episode.
Just the episode.
Don't you fear.
You got a little hint, a little taste. Huh?
You got a little glimpse. I hope you all really enjoyed that. I really love this conversation. I felt like there were a lot of good tidbits in here that I hope people go forth and discuss with their loved ones, with their friends. Talk about love, y'all. That's why we're here. That's the source. That's everything about it. Everything about this world. We would get it done. We would get it better if we did it with love. Hey, and on that note, thank you for watching 23, 24, 25. I hope you go and you just have the most beautiful day full of love. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. And join us next week for a conversation about self-discovery, which, has a little bit to do with love, but we're going a different angle on it, We're going to talk a little bit about some artistry, some discovering who you are as a person and why you like to do what you do. Is going to be an episode you don't want to miss. I'm telling you. Thanks, y'all. I'll see y'all soon. Bye.
232425 is a podcast produced and hosted by Joska. Graphic design by Joska. Executive producer, director of photography, and editor, Dante Charles Critchlow. Music by Fadal Moore. A special thanks to Anthony and Celintia Moore, Constance Moore, and Harold Hickson for their contributions to production. And a special thanks to viewers like you who create the community of my wildest dreams. Thank you.
232425 TV.